He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 He won't see the sun again for years to come. He's broken out in love. Run! Oh, this was a tough one. Let's do it. I'm John Ritlam with Bray Wyatt becoming immortal. Whew. This was a tough one, guys. I just got to it roughly 36 hours after it dropped on Peacock. This is a Peacock original. This had a lot of people very emotional on social media. A lot of Bray Wyatt fans pouring out their love for Wyndham Rotunda, the man who played Bray Wyatt, who was a third-generation talent. And even if you weren't the biggest fan of some of the more outlandish stuff that he did, however you felt it did or didn't fit into professional wrestling, he had a lot of creative ideas, and this expanded on that. I will preface this by saying that I still stand by what I said about some of the stuff being more for horror movies than, for an actual wrestling program. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the creativity and the love and passion he poured into it. And he was just more than a wrestling gimmick character. He was a family man. And there were some parts about the family, especially JoJo, but just in general, you saw how much of a family man he was. And I wanted to preface that by saying, all that and not just pushing it to the side. Because I have to be completely honest with you guys. I don't want to come across as a hypocrite, but this still was really sad because you saw how much he meant to so many people. You got to see a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, how his masks and stuff was made. Bo, a.k.a. his brother Taylor, was all over this. And there was a lot to dive into, so I got a lot of notes here, a lot of notes. So let's get to it. Wrestling is not a love story. It's much more. It's hope. It's an excuse to be a kid again. And I will say that as somebody who started watching wrestling at 4 years old, yeah, like War to Sell the Score. I remember seeing that when I was being babysat, and it was incredible to see. It was just incredible to see. Bo in the warehouse, going over the memories. There was a guy, Jason Baker, who was a costume maker and filmmaker. I need to see more stuff that he's done because he was good in this. I would like to see more of what, he has done. So I'll have to check out some of his stuff at some point. The Talking Heads, no, not the same as it ever was. Fitting, though, once in a lifetime, as far as a talent like Wyndham, as far as his creativity and how much he poured his heart into it. Cena, Hogan, I don't know why Hogan was part of this. Maybe because they're just trying to have a big star there. I think they should have had Roman on this because Bray and Roman had a pretty good feud. Bray didn't really do much, besides anyone but you, and he would lose the matches. But that's we had Flair, we had Alexa, we had Rollins, Triple H, we had the family, JoJo, the sister. Got to see the kids later. Bo, a.k.a. Taylor, Jason Baker, Bruce Pritchard, and a guy named Rob Fee. So as far as creative people and everything, we got a good melting pot of talking heads and also Hulk Hogan. Also, we got Flair, who is melting as we speak. I would have liked to have heard from other people that he feuded with. I know Matt Hardy is in AEW, but I kind of wish they could have talked to him because, sure, that team didn't last as long as it could have, but still, it was something. We did get to hear from Orton. It's a real shame that we didn't get better, more talking heads, but this was more about celebrating the life and love that Wyndham, put out into the world. So, seeing the clips in the beginning was really, really cool. Seeing the montage from beginning to, now, current stuff as far as, what he did. Narrated by Undertaker. I will say that Undertaker might, they might want to actually get him for the next season of Dark Side of the Ring if there is that, because at least he actually had he actually has some energy to him. So we're in Western Pennsylvania. We see Jason Baker, the costume maker. They kept implying throughout this that Bo wanted to carry on the legacy, you know, because he was Uncle Howdy, that whole thing. And we do get multiple unreleased interviews of Bray, and there was some nice, good footage here. He was born in Brooksville, Florida. Blackjack, you know, the lineage of history in the family. Blackjack Mulligan, Kendall Windham, Barry Windham, who has had his own health issues. Mike Rotunda, aka Captain Mike Rotunda, IRS, VK Wall Street. Mike Rotunda's a hell of a goddamn worker, don't get me wrong, but VK Wall Street. And you got to hear from the mother. And there was a lot, there was some good stuff. I like the family pieces here. We saw, you know, Mania 1 clips with Mike and Barry, the U.S. Express. That didn't last as long as it could have. I did like to see the little bit of footage at the finish of them being Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch for the Tag Team Championships. And Mike wrestled Rick in Florida because by then he was out of the WWF and he was going to be going to the NWA soon, especially once Jim Crockett absorbed the Florida territory. Wyndham was born. I will refer to him as Bray, by the way, for most of this because I did not know him personally, but he did have the Wyndham name and the Rotunda name. He dived into shows and films very early on. He read Goosebumps. You can see it with a lot of his ideas, and I'm not knocking, but you can see a lot of it there. I'm amazed he didn't try to do a possessed camera thing. Say, you know, the possessed camera deal, or Don't Look in the Basement, which I actually think was a 70s exploitation horror movie. But Ghostbusters, the good Ghostbusters, and not the lazy one that came out recently that's still in theaters as of this recording. Bo and Micah, I kept wanting to say Mika. That's probably because I watched Paranormal Activity too much. Natty kind of is a bit of a bridge for some of this stuff because she talks about how Jim Neidhart and Mike Rotunda were friends. The IRS footage, my God. Everybody had to have an occupation gimmick, and Vince McMahon just was bound, determined to do that. But you know what? He poured his heart into it. He did. Like, honestly, Mike Rotunda made the most of that. It must have been hot as hell for him to be in that outfit. Even if they made wrestling versions of that material, which I don't think they did. I actually think he was in suit type stuff. Maybe loosened up a little bit. Good Lord. 2010 interview footage of him at 23 years old as he was Husky Harris. More on that in a bit. He plays high school football, junior football in California. Moves back closer to home. Troy University. And Bo was competing in wrestling, suffered an injury, of amateur wrestling, and basically, and this is where Bo cracked, and, you know, because he felt that he let his brother down, he said, no, that shit matters. At the end of the day, it is about family. And Bo signed with WWE at 18. I did not remember he signed that early. I mean, I believe it. I'm just saying, I knew he signed young, I just didn't remember he signed that early. So Bray decides to leave college and become a pro wrestler as well. We see FTW footage. They're working in the armory. There is Bo and Duke Rotundo. Dusty was on commentary. We got archival footage of him in 2014. And he gave his takes on how, you know, creative Bray was. That was nice to hear. Cena talks about Hard Knocks South, which was some kind of developmental training thing, I believe. And that, you know, Bray was a standout. As far as an athlete, bigger guy, but you could tell that he was bound and determined, and he carried that weight around well, and he distributed it well. Because some people could be 50 pounds less than Bray and couldn't move that good. And other people could be 50 pounds more or 100 pounds more, like Jerry Blackwell, and could move well. Bray was in that good sweet spot where, yeah, he didn't maybe look like he was in the best shape when he was Husky Harris, because Vince likes to make fun of fat guys. One of the many reasons that Vince McMahon will go to hell. Yeah, making fun of Buddy Rose and Adrian Adonis being the heavyset guy, and Husky Harris. And sure, he's on the big side, but he's still a really good athlete. He wasn't happy with that, but he had a girlfriend. Turned out to be, I believe, his first wife, Samantha. They had a daughter, Caden. He wasn't there for the birth, but he was on the phone to hear it, which must have been weird. Triple Triple H felt he could get something out of Wyndham. He was sent back to FCW, that became NXT. The NXT game show concept, by the way, I absolutely hated. It was an abomination. And did nobody any goddamn favors. Anyway, the pro and, rookie concept didn't bother me. It was the fact that they did the game show stuff. And he was inspired, he being Bray, was inspired by Waylon Mercy when Dan Spivey basically ripped off everything from the 1991 version of Cape Fear with Robert De Niro, which I need to watch at some point after I rewatch the 1962 version. They was superior because I had Robert Mitchum in it and was really, really good. But yeah, he was inspired by Waylon Mercy, who was inspired by Cape Fear and all this horror movie stuff. And also the fact that he was doing the interview stuff, Bray Wyatt, B-R-A-E, White, rather, a childhood friend, who apparently was absolutely crazy, according to Taylor. They don't really talk about much of that stuff. But some people will get 60 to 90 seconds for promos, and Bray sometimes will go on for 6 or 7 minutes because he was exploding with ideas. So, Graves, Sammy, Dusty chime in again. It was really nice to hear from the Dusty stuff. Luke Harper, John Huber, the late John Huber. He heard ideas from Bray, just rattling off the ideas. It's not that he didn't appreciate the creativity, but it's like, well, this guy's nuts. But they formed a friendship. The Swamp Leader stuff, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, was what I liked about Bray the most. I will explain. The Cult Leader stuff, hence why I got that shirt right there, kind of reminded me of that. It was a great encapsulation of Bray. The thing is for a character like that, for a gimmick like that, you need to have somebody win and be well established. If it just gets to where the promos are very good, even if you kind of have to write them down like Jimmy Valiant's promos or some people's promos and they don't make a lot of sense, if they go somewhere and they win, then it means something. And at first, it was working. And then it started not to work, not because of Bray, but because of bad creative. So, it was near, apparently, the house that he grew up in. The swamp stuff and everything. I don't know much about Brooksville, Florida, but it sounds kind of podunk, so I'm not surprised they're near a swamp. Here's Eric Rowan. Big guy, I wonder what he's doing. I know he's appeared on AEW programming, but I know that he was part of the Bray tribute on SmackDown, but I don't know what else he's doing. So the sheep mask. Personally, I'd bring Rowan back and have him and Braun team up if Braun's going to come back at any point, because what else are you going to do with two big guys that are about 40 or over? Then just have them be big, meaty guys that smash, 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 smash. Just a little idea. The sheep masks, the vignettes, all that stuff, it worked. It worked. The Swamp Leader Bray stuff worked. His second daughter, Kendall, was born. He was already a better worker than Kendall Windham ever was. That's mean, but if you've seen Kendall Windham's work, I'm sorry. Family was his priority. And he made his debut on television because they done the we're here and all that. Broken Out in Love, doing the spin around, and I'm not gonna try to do the spin around stuff because I'm dizzy already from emotions and the fact that I haven't slept and I'm over caffeinated. So 7/15/2013, Big Pop. I remember that. I had to write down the date just to remember the exact episode, but I do remember, okay, this is a big deal. I'd seen a little bit of the stuff as far as NXT, but I didn't start watching NXT regularly until it went onto the network when the award-winning WWE Network happened. And I watched some of the stuff back, and you could absolutely see why Bray and the Wyatt family, why all this stuff worked. It worked in a small setting, it worked in a big setting, as long as you have them win. Yes, a man passed away. That's more important. But it will always frustrate me that they did not realize the potential with this character. And that's why Undertaker worked. Because even when Undertaker got knocked down, he got back up again. Nothing kept him down. And even when he went away for a little bit in the Royal Rumble, or after the casket match at Royal Rumble 94, where about 15 million heels came out and attacked him, he came back and yeah, he had some bad feuds. But he would win more than he lost. And then when he would go on a bit of a, not losing streak, but he'd lose a little bit more, it meant more because, holy shit, Problem is, they didn't capitalize enough on Bray. They skipped over the match that he had with Kane in the Ring of Fire match. They went down, down, down. The flames went higher, and it burned, 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 and it was the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire. Then the feud with Cena. They just skipped right to the goddamn feud. They skipped over the feud with the Shield outside of a few clips, which I don't understand. The feud with Cena, where he was trying to get him to embrace the hate and embrace the dark side. And I just recently retro-reviewed WrestleMania 30. You can check out my full thoughts on that. But I'll centralize them here to basically say, Cena, by the way, and great clips, by the way, and had Bray won, it would have meant something. Cena could have won the next two matches. Bray would have had that moment at Mania. And in New Orleans, with a voodoo that you do so well background. But Cena's like, I'm of the belief it takes 10 years to establish any, any sort of fluency. What? And then he says, I know Husky Harris didn't work out, but holy shit, when he came back, it was a fluency in 6 months. He contradicted himself. Also, Kurt Angle would like a word. Bret Hart would like a goddamn word, because Bret Hart was already getting it well before 10 years. I'm not saying that he's totally wrong. There are people that take a bit to become a great wrestler, but 10 years in this day and age, even in the territory days, Terry Gordy was already an incredible worker at about 19, 20 years old in the territories, and various others. Harley Race was already great less than 10 years in. Okay, I'm not saying Bray Wyatt was Harley Race or Terry Gore. Actually, he was much more like Terry Gordy than anything else as far as how he could move, but you get the point. Various people are way better, more, within 5 years, not 10 years. Cena, you idiot. The fact that he has that ridiculous hair, I just can't take him seriously. Nevertheless, the entrance of Madison Square Garden was a big deal. Bo was getting emotional about it. The fireflies, the camera, the camera flashlight and everything. I remember participating in that stuff. That was kind of cool. And I'm taking a look at my notes here. I wrote them so frantically. I don't even remember some of the stuff I said, but he wanted to make this stuff work. He wanted to get his ideas out there, but the thing is in 2014, he would still have feuds, but he lost. He won the match at Extreme Rules because he got a kid to do a dubbed over voice in a steel cage match, which wasn't good. And I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying this was their chance, and they completely torpedoed the character. Tried to rebuild him in 2014. He had that thing with Dean Ambrose with the projection stuff and then the exploding TV. And then he has a feud with Undertaker. And Undertaker said it helped restore his confidence. Bray had a really badly turned ankle, if I recall correctly. Ankle or leg injury of some variety. I think it was his ankle. And he probably had to be doped up quite a bit just to get through that. So credit to him. He even did the spider walk on a bad ankle. Probably because he couldn't feel it. But that's how much he cared about his craft. He should have been the one to break the streak of WrestleMania 30. They should have had Brock and Cena have a match. And Bray would have had an even bigger moment. And then if Bray had lost to Cena the next month, or not the next month, but the next year, that would whatever. Then Braun gets brought up. He was a member of the Rosebuds. Remember Adam Rose and the Rosebuds? You shouldn't. It was rubbish. But a debut just before Night of Champions 2015. I think the night after SummerSlam 2015, if I recall correctly, or shortly thereafter. They hit off. They were, Braun basically learned a lot from him. And that was nice. It was nice to hear from Braun. I do wonder how his recovery is going because I know he's been out with a neck injury since sometime last summer or spring. He didn't treat anybody like they were beneath him as far as backstage. Even if he was on a certain level and other people were coming up and had come from the indies, Becky talked about how gracious he was. The travel was taking its toll. There were family pictures. The Mania 32 confrontation with The Rock and then Eric Rowan losing in 6 seconds to The Rock. Good stuff with the family there. He lost a lot more than he should have initially. See, he could take losses after a bit. He didn't win a big feud. Even the stuff with Ambrose, did it elevate him? They skipped over the match that he had at the 2014 Rumble against Daniel Bryan, now Bryan Danielson. They skipped over a lot of stuff. Now, yes, it was more about the man himself and the creativity. I just feel they could have shown some more match highlights. Then they skip over the feud with Roman. I did like the one thing I wish they had included was the night after Mania 32. Or is either the night after or the Raw after WrestleMania. Where it was League of Nations taking on Roman and Bray. And Bray hits Sister Abigail and then does the finger point thing just as Roman hits the spear, which is one of the coolest goddamn shots. And one of the coolest things that Bray was involved in. And it seems like such a minor thing, but that in the ring, that was one of the coolest things they did. And one of the things that still sticks out in my mind, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. And unfortunately, he did suffer an injury after that. Then he won the WWE Championship. This is after having the feud with Randy, and then Randy being part of the Wyatt family, and Luke Harper could have been included in the match, but no, they couldn't do that. He won the title Elimination Chamber 2017. Hearing Mauro Ranallo call WWE action again, it was nice to hear that. I hope he's doing well. I know he had to step away because he was taking care of his own mental health and taking care of family. Can't remember if his mother or some family member, but still, hope he's doing well. I like Mauro. But he held the title for 7 weeks. They skipped over, thankfully, the bugs projected on the mat on Mania 33. House of Horrors. They talk about how he's going through a divorce at this time and how he met JoJo soon after. I thought that maybe he met JoJo while he was still married, whatever. I'm not here to judge that. I don't know. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. It didn't work out with him and Samantha because Sam made the pants too long, if anybody gets that reference, because I can't help it. Can't help it. Him and JoJo got together. She was a ring announcer that became basically the, she was a wrestler at first, and I barely remember her in the ring. It was better that she became a ring announcer. The Bludgeon Brothers were briefly mentioned. Jason Baker helped design the stuff. I do vividly remember some of the stuff that Chris, aka my friend, my best friend, the Durbinator, who's doing well, by the way, just want to say that. No hound to social media, but he's doing well. But we would always make jokes about how, Harper and Rowan would meet, and they would just be talking, and then they would turn to the camera and say, oh shit, we're on. And it was just fun. It's just those fun little memories. It's great stuff about wrestling. Bray has creative side, but it was hard to translate some of that stuff to the ring. That is something that I always got a little bit upset about when it came to some of his ideas. Because some of them were great, but they were better for horror movies than they were to translate to the ring. They were fine for backstage vignettes. How do you translate it to the ring in front of a live crowd? Even some of the Undertaker stuff was difficult to do, to be fair. Some of the Kane stuff was difficult to do. First kid was a son. Bray didn't think that he would ever have a son. First son with JoJo, or first kid with JoJo, because he had 2 kids with Sam. I wonder if the kids made the pants too long. I'm done with that reference. No, I'm not. So, second was a daughter. He became more creatively involved because he wanted to have another character, the Fiend, the Firefly, Funhouse stuff, horror-based character. Mr. Rogers meets, Pennywise, I guess would be the best way to describe it. I readily admit that this was stuff that a lot of people liked. I didn't, but looking back on it, I see why people did. And look, it was creative stuff. Again, I stand by what I said, but it was stuff that people remember, so I can't fault it. And stupid Bruce Pritchard is what I wrote down, because I don't care if people think that Bruce Pritchard is a human being. He's not. He basically is Vince McMahon's avatar. What about Avatar? And Bruce just always comes across as a disingenuous prick, so I just wanted to say that right there. We see the workshop stuff, the Funhouse set. Jason Baker was a guy that worked with him. And look, whoever this Jason Baker guy is, they must love him, and the company must love him, because if they had that much faith in him, and Bray had that much faith in him, then he must be good. So I, again, have to check out some of his stuff. The fans loved it. The fans loved the Funhouse stuff. The fans loved the Fiend stuff. It sold like crazy, including that Flesh Apron Championship that cost quite a bit. A lot. Way too much. Why did the title cost that much? Why did they make that thing? So, yeah, they skipped over the Hell in a Cell 2019 match. Smart, because that was not good. That was the second straight Hell in a Cell that ended in a no contest, in a match where there was supposed to be no rules and there must be a winner. the Fiend character got watered down quickly. And it got watered down in part because Vince didn't get it. And also because some of the stuff was hard to translate to the goddamn ring. He snaps Finn Balor's neck and Finn Balor is still living. But again, it looked cool. It got attention. The pandemic hit, so we had the Firefly Funhouse match, which people liked. 2 days of preparation. People really liked that stuff. You know how I felt about it. Check out my review a while ago of WrestleMania 36. When, yeah, I was just kind of going insane because the pandemic was going on. I was pumping out a lot of content. And there were just certain things I didn't care for. But again, they went through a lot of stuff with him and Cena. He finally got his win over Cena 6 years. 6 years after he should have. And then Alexa was introduced into the group. You know how I felt about that. But her and Bray had a lot of ideas they threw back and forth. He saw a lot in Alexa, who's not a wrestler but can be a performer. And then Harper passing away in December of 2020. I want to say it was right after Christmas of 2020. And I remember reading about that. I remember vividly. A friend of mine, Bobby, who's down in Texas, I remember we were chatting on Facebook Messenger. And I see this tweet. I don't remember if I sent it to him or he sent it to me. I actually don't remember. But remember we're like, well, this is a mean thing to make up. And then you realize it's Tony Khan sending it, and for all his faults, he wouldn't actually make anything up. It's like, oh, no, what? Because we just saw him on AEW programming 2.5 months prior. And he had the lung thing. I don't remember what the hell it was. But he passed away, and Bray was obviously very gutted because that's somebody that he grew up in the business with and was friends with outside the ring, not just inside the ring, and it meant a lot to him. Obviously, he felt very gutted by that. And yeah, it's still hard to believe that that was just over 3 years ago. The Inferno match where Orton set him on fire, and it was dumb. I'm sorry. I know the visual of it was dumb. The idea to write him off so he had time to spend with his family and also to grieve over Harper's death, that didn't bother me. Because you have to grieve however you can. But then the swing set stuff, and they skipped over Alexa shooting a fireball at Orton's face, and then WrestleMania 37, which was his last match in the company before he was taken off TV. I think he had like one Funhouse thing, and see you soon, and that was it. And then Bo was released, and Bray was released soon because they were releasing a ton of people to clear money off the books for a company that was making insane profits at that point. Because they were going back on the road to do a whole bunch of stuff. And during his time off, he was doing art. He was doing all kinds of stuff. The eyes of Wyatt March, or Mars, screwed that reference up. Apologize. Sorry. But he also had a reality TV show with Bo, where they were doing a bunch of it was like hunting monsters and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I didn't know about that, but I would have liked to have seen that picked up because his creativity would have translated to television, is my point. And his return with the White Rabbit stuff and everything, that was certainly something that got a lot of attention, and it was something that a lot of people loved. So Bo also got to return. We had TJ and Natty helping get him back helping get them back in the ring shape, especially Bray. Bray was offering advice to other trainees. It was nice to see TJ, Tyson Kidd, who has found a second life, or being able to walk and also being able to pass on his knowledge of wrestling. And it's nice to see Natty training people, and it's just working. It's just really working for them, and I'm happy. Rob V, he was a creative guy. He was hired at some point, like 2021, 2022, and he worked with, Triple H and Bray to form this White Rabbit Fiend return stuff. And Jason Baker got to play the Fiend because everybody was dressed up like all these puppets, you know, the Rabbit and Ramblin' Rabbit and the Pig and Sister Abigail or Abby, and help me, I've gone blank. And returned to Extreme Rules 2022. The main event of that, by the way, had Daniel Cormier refereeing a fight pit between Riddle and Rollins. No, really, that was the main event. And holy shit chance, because they had him to go through the door, take off the mask, holding the lantern up, big pop, welcome back chance on SmackDown. He cut a hell of a promo. The fans never forgot him. The fans brought him back in. And video chats with the fans because he said it sounds corny, but the fans are the main reason that I do this. Uncle Howdy was Bo. There was this idea to maybe have them team up at Mania. Then to dive into the crash pad with the explosions by Uncle Howdy for no goddamn reason. Again, didn't like the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, but it visually it certainly popped. And then his last, match turned out to be in Rockford, Illinois, February 26, 2023, just under 6 months before his passing. Match at LA Knight. And look, the crowd was up for it. Fireflies are all out. The heart issues were exacerbated by a bout with COVID. I want to say right now that anybody that wants to come with COVID conspiracy theories in this review or anything else, you either keep that shit to yourself or I'm going to ban you. I don't care how long you've been around. I know people who have dealt with it. I know people who have dealt with the long COVID. I know people who have dealt with stuff. And it's legit, and especially after 4 goddamn years of this shit, if you're going to have a problem with it and want to spout your conspiracy theories because you got brain parasites instead of a brain, yeah, fuck off. So, he was having his issues, the doctors were taking care of him, but I didn't realize how bad it was. It wasn't any of my business, but he's got to take a nap. He was having more issues. Got a vest to shock his heart back into, beating. And he might need a pacemaker, but he was going to be fine. So he probably wasn't going to wrestle. Because you can't wrestle with a pacemaker. Ric Flair proved that. Ric Flair shouldn't have been wrestling in his last match anyway. Shouldn't have been on this documentary either. But, he's talking to Samantha because he still had a good relationship with her. Even though he's married to JoJo. I'm going to pick up the kids from school and the kids are all crawling all over. And then JoJo, he's taking a nap. Your alarm's going off. He's not waking up. And he passed away in his home, which he passed away surrounded by people he loved in a house full of people. 36, guys, 36. And again, regardless of how I felt about what he put on TV, still a creative guy and a man that had children died. Like, no parent should have to bury their child, and no child should lose their parent or whoever has raised them, even if it's not by blood, that early on, during their formative years. The cycle of life does happen, but JoJo found him. I mean, that's going to be something that's just going to stick with you. So I'm not going to go over that much, but he was gone, and Bo said he felt his strength, like, you got to lift people up and everything because they need you. You're there, I'm not. Can only imagine how this was for Bo because they grew up in wrestling together. I mean, they obviously grew up in life together, but Jesus. SmackDown the day after, I vividly remember this stuff, the tributes, LA Knight talking about how he had to look up at the ceiling to collect himself. Paying tribute to him, the various, footage around from house shows, and his legacy, how Bo is coming back. We see footage of the kids, and God, you feel for the kids. You just really fucking feel for the goddamn kids. And then they do the credits saying, whole world in his hands. And then they show the shot of the lantern, and it lights up, run. So Bo's going to come back at some point, probably after Mania, We'll see. I'm filming this obviously before Mania, so who knows? Maybe he shows up at Mania and attacks somebody. I don't know. Bottom line is, before I complete the breakdown, rest in peace, Bray, Wyndham Rotunda, family man, creative guy. Regardless of how we all felt about him, some of his stuff on television is still a man that passed away. And rest in peace, Bray. Bray Wyatt becoming immortal. Check it out if you haven't already. Rest in peace, Bray. You'll be missed.